And it's Kkraetzer for CBSI Talking Business, our interview series talking with leaders in the field of banking, insurance, customer service, business education, all to highlight our team. We're based in Harrison, New York. We provide insurance-backed benefits to the payments industry. And
Mm.
today we are really pleased to do another follow-up from the terrific MACMA conference in April. And we're going to talk with Greg Krehbiel. And Greg is the founder of the Krehbiel Group, and he's got a lot of experience in publishing, and he's got a newsletter and a podcast. Greg, good to see you today. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Ken. Good to see you. It was a great event in New York a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, what did you come away with some of the points? Obviously, everybody's still trying to work on monetization of being digital and getting back after the pandemic. What were some of the points that you took away?
Well, I guess probably the highlight for me was the chat about Invisibly and how they're trying to change their monetization strategy. You know, they're allowing customers to decide how they're going to pay for content. So Invisibly brings in content from various magazines, and then they let the user decide one of three different ways to pay for that. They can allow Invisibly to sell their data. They can offer their own first-party data. They can answer questions and quizzes and so forth, or they can just pay. And I think it's a fascinating model for trying to come up with new ways to monetize content, because that's the big thing that publishers are always struggling with. You know, for a long time, it was advertising, and people are moving back towards subscription models, but there's all kinds of other ways to monetize content, and they're experimenting, and I think that's a great thing.
Very good. Now, Greg, if you would, why don't you take us through a little bit of your experience and I know you've done a lot in customer data platforms, but why don't you take us through some of the steps of your career, some of your key expertise areas?
Sure. So I started off well, the funny thing is I have a degree in geology and I ended up working in publishing, which doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it goes. I was working for a long time as an editor in the natural gas area and for business to business publications. So I kind of grew up in the publishing industry on the business to business side, working on, believe it or not, loose leaf publications with monthly newsletters. And then eventually I moved into running that company's online service. We converted all those loose leaf books into online services and created a bunch of free email newsletters and that sort of thing. So I've worked in editorial, marketing, fulfillment, product development, kind of every area you can think of with publishing. And then I moved on to some other companies where we've had more of a B2C focus. So I've done some magazine work. And basically over the course of my career, most of what I've done has been sort of at the margin between the business people and the technology people. So I've usually been the guy who kind of interprets the technology for the business people, helping the marketers and the IT guys get along. That's a big part of what I've done. So recently what I've been focusing on is, as you said, customer data platforms, but also fulfillment, e-commerce, email systems, landing page testing, you know, any place where publishing touches technology, I get involved.
Very good. Sounds like the role of a systems analyst, as we call it in that role. Now, why don't we just take us through a little bit about what are some of the customer data platforms that you see, what's involved, what ones are working today?
Yeah, so there are a whole lot of them out there. And if you think about it, one way to think about a customer data platform is that it's an evolution of the customer relations management concept. It just takes that concept a step further. And the big thing to look at when you're looking at customer data platforms is their origin story. A lot of them started off maybe as an ESP, an email service provider, and then they added functions to become a customer data platform. Or they might have started off as a data company, and then they added functions to become a customer data platform. And based on their origin story, they'll all have different flavors to them. So some of the big ones are Segment and Telium and BlueConic, and in the publishing world, there's Omeda. So there's a lot of customer data platforms out there, and they all differ a little bit in the way they approach things. But the basic idea is to try to take all of your customer data from all your different sources, from Salesforce, from your ESP, from your website, from your e-commerce site, from every place you have customer data, bring it all together and try to create, as close as you can, a single customer view for each customer. And then use that information to do different kinds of activations, to say, I'm going to have these email campaigns for these kind of customers, or I'm going to take this segment and I'm going to sell that to an advertiser on my website. There's all kinds of different applications for customer data platforms, but I think the publishing world is maybe a little slow to pick up on customer data platforms, but it's really a great technology for publishers to look into.
Okay, and you've done work on websites and landing pages. What are some of the keys now in making a website effective? And landing page can be one of the keys in search engine optimization. What are some of the key factors that you work with clients on?
Yeah, so probably the biggest factor is speed and having a mobile first design for your website. Those are the things, because Google is, of course, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and they measure websites by speed and how good your mobile site is. So those are the first two things to look at. Make sure your page is fast, make sure your site is optimized for mobile. Beyond that, it's really a question of, it's going to vary from company to company what they're trying to do. And publishers need to make sure that they're delivering content in a way that people can discover it, and then that they have some sort of a path from, most companies, most of their traffic is what I call drive-bys, people who come one time and they're gone. And unfortunately, if you look at a website just from the perspective of traffic, overall traffic, you're looking too much at those drive-bys. That might be 80% of your traffic is people who come once and then they're gone forever. And rather than focusing on those people, you really need to focus on the people who come several times. So it's really important for publishers to try to focus on people who might engage with them in the long term, rather than just the people who are one and done and never come back.
Very good. Absolutely. Now, one of the areas that you've worked on is marketing automation and various types of marketing technology. We work with banks quite a bit. Everybody's going through digital transformation. Certainly during the pandemic, some of the customer services have been maintained as they're found to be convenient by customers. What are some of the key areas of marketing automation technology that you work on?
Yeah, so marketing automation means a lot of different things to different people, but generally speaking, it refers to having a customer journey where once a customer does one thing, you put them into a journey where you say, okay, this is the next best action for that customer. So a typical marketing automation might be if somebody signs up for your email newsletter, send them a response acknowledging that, send them a follow-up sometime later, maybe send them a how-to video or something. So the idea of trying to onboard a customer to have a better relationship with the brand. So marketing automation is all about moving people down a funnel. Marketers like to think of funnels. You have the wide end of the funnel is all the people who have any interest or awareness of your publication or product, and then you move them through that funnel. Well, marketing automation is simply one of the ways that you try to do that using different types of technology. ESPs, or email service providers, typically have some kind of marketing automation built into them. If they don't, then find a better ESP or use something else, use a customer data platform or something else to help with moving people through that engagement funnel where they go from, awareness to interest and all that kind of thing.
Very good. And you've also done a lot of work on customer acquisition and retention. In acquisition, in our banking campaigns, direct mail is still working well. And what are some of the areas of acquisition for publishers? At the conference, there was a lot of talk about paywalls in terms of, you read an article, sounds great, about 3 paragraphs into it, you're asked to subscribe.
Yeah.
What are some of the acquisition methods that you find working?
Yes, you raise an interesting point about direct mail. I think a lot of people have abandoned direct mail incorrectly. I think they should take another look at direct mail because there is some benefit. You know, when everybody's in the inbox, be in the mailbox. That's actually my strategy with my letter. I put out the Krehbiel letter and I send it out in the mail so people actually get an actual letter. And I think there's some benefit in being counter-cyclical, doing what other people are not doing. Everybody gets a trillion emails, but generally speaking, for acquisition, once again, it's this question of how are you going to have your content discovered? And that's a question of search engine optimization and maybe a social strategy or other ways to make sure that your content is getting out to the people that you're trying to attract. And then there's so many different ways on a website to convert people from interest to being a subscriber. And sometimes it's a matter, you know, some companies will do a hard paywall and some companies will do a registration wall and then a paywall. And there are a bunch of different strategies, and it's really hard to say which is the right one right now because people are having success different ways. Some people, the Wall Street Journal has success with a relatively hard paywall. Other people take people through a different kind of a journey where they register, they try to get them to sign up for e-newsletters, and then after a certain amount of engagement, they promote a payment option for them. So I think there are a lot of things to look into in that area, and it's really a question of experimentation and trying different things because I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer for every media company or everybody who's offering a product or a service.
We hear a little bit about some of the major national publications. You mentioned the Wall Street Journal, perhaps the New York Times, the Washington Post, Boston Globe in the newspaper field. What are some of the successes you might say in the publication field of being able to build a profitable subscription base online?
So I was just today, I was reading an article. I think it came from the Bo Sachs email. If you're not signed up for Bo Sachs, go to Bo Sachs and sign up. It's great. And it was about the new scientist. And it's a very good article where they go through different strategies that they tried over time. And that's kind of what was informing what I was just saying, that there are different strategies that work for different people. So the Wall Street Journal has a very solid brand recognition. Everybody knows what the Wall Street Journal is about and what they do. So a hard paywall works better for them than it might work for some other company that doesn't have that same brand recognition or isn't as much of a need to have publication. So there are all these different factors that come into play. Is this education? Is it entertainment? Is it, you know, is it sports, or is it something you need for your job, or is it something you need for your business? All these different things are going to play into what's going to work better. So I don't like looking at successes in one area of publishing and then trying to extrapolate that to every other area of publishing because it's going to be different depending on what you're doing. And there are some good successes out there that we, you know, pay attention to and read about and learn from. But we also have to realize it's just because it worked over there doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And you got to try different things and experiment.
Very good. And talking with Greg Krehbiel. Greg from the Krehbiel Group, a long career in publishing. And Greg, tell us, our audience, a little bit about your newsletter. You mentioned it a moment ago, and also the podcast that you have available.
Sure. So the newsletter, I started out just writing a letter to my clients, and it's a 4-page monthly newsletter. I want to keep them informed about things that I think are important, but I started sending it out a little more broadly to other people who are interested in publishing, and now it's available to anybody who's interested in publishing. It's a 4-page monthly physical letter that I send in the mail, and there's also an email version, of course, and it's also on my website, and I also summarize it on my podcast. So I try to eat my own cooking and make my content available. One of the things I promote is that publishers should take their content and distribute it in as many different mediums as makes sense, right? So one person wants to read a letter, one person wants to read an email, one person wants to listen. Okay, fine. I'll distribute it in all those different ways. So people can go to KraehbielGroup.com. It's difficult to spell, Krehbiel, KraehbielGroup.com, and find the Krehbiel letter And then my podcast is probably the best way to find my podcast is to follow me on LinkedIn. And I post it there every day. So I do it 5 days a week, very short, try to keep it to 3 minutes. And it's just a summary. I call it something I learned yesterday. It's just a summary of something that I saw in an article or something that I heard about that I thought was worth mentioning.
Well, that is being very disciplined to do a daily LinkedIn video. I admire your persistence on that, and getting in that routine. It's the visibility, I'm sure, is very good, and the information very helpful to your clients. And Greg, do you have a final thought for us today?
Sure. So you work with publishers. I've been in publishing my whole career, and publishing is obviously going through a lot of changes. There are a lot of challenges. A lot of things are different than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think it's really important for publishers to stay on top of different strategies, different approaches. You should be involved in conferences like the conference you and I both went to. People should be reading newsletters. They should be engaged in conversations on LinkedIn. You got to make sure that you're tracking what's going on and what the ideas are. And not every idea is going to work for you, but you need that funnel of new content, new information, new strategies coming into your mind so you can think about new ways to address the very many serious challenges that publishers are facing today.
Well, Greg, great to chat with you. It's good to meet you at the MACMA event. That is a Media Audience Content Marketing Association. Lisa and her team have done a great job. They had over 100 people there at the conference, many of whom came in from out of town to attend that event at the Hearst Tower. And really good to meet you and hear a little bit about your thoughts on publishing and the digital world.
Thanks so much, Ken. Very much appreciate it.
Hey, good to see you. And this is Kkraetzer for CBSI Talking Business. Again, we highlight our team here in Harrison, New York. We provide benefits in the credit card and payments industry. So thanks again to our guest today, Greg, and thank you for watching.